I awoke after what must have been hours. It was dark out now. My head ached immensely. I was on the ground, tied up around my wrists and ankles with thick rope. I looked around and realized I was still next to the house. From behind, I could feel the warmth of a massive bonfire. Flipping over, I saw the largest fire I'd ever seen. The tips of the flame were taller than the house before it. On the other side of the fire was Zoe. She too was bound. She was awake and looking at me with a horrified look on her face. I immediately thought back to my backpack I brought with us. Zoe's dad insisted we bring a pocket knife if we were exploring in the woods.
Zoe, it's okay. Where's my pack? There's a...
Zoe cut me off.
Bex?
Tears poured down her face. She wasn't looking at me. I turned around. In the dark, I hadn't seen them before, but now they were all I could see. A dozen or so figures stood at the tree line. Each person wore a dark black cloak with black gloves. They were all identical, save for one feature. Each wore a nearly identical mask. They were white, expressionless masks. The only thing setting them apart was red. Several of the members in the back wore all white masks. The rest had varying numbers of red dots painted on the masks. As they grew closer, the cultist mask had more red dots. However, the one standing closest to me, that mask was completely blood red. The robes they wore hid their features well. Some were tall, others short. Some were heavier than others. Several even bore the unmistakable curves of women. However, no identities could be discerned from this. The one with the red mask stepped forward. "Brothers and sisters of the knighthood, our time is nigh." He spoke in a deep voice. He was tall, but not the tallest among them. Even under his billowing robe, he seemed very thin. "We, the knights who have promised ourselves to the mighty King of Darkness, have come to make an offering to our lord."
Hail Deimos,
the rest said in unison. I started sobbing uncontrollably. Fear took me completely. Behind me, I heard Zoe pleading for them to stop. She kept saying she was sorry and that we wouldn't tell anyone. I could not muster the words to agree or disagree. I was lost in my own horror. The leader paid us no mind and continued. "These beautiful ones shall make a glorious sacrifice for the coming of our Lord of the Wood."
Hail Deimos.
The group converged and circled around us in a loose circle. "We make an offering to you, O Lord." In unison, they began to chant in a most sing-song fashion in a tongue I didn't understand.
Quisimus Domine, Dominus Noster Tenebris, et suscipe benedictionum hanc pulchri Domini, munus primarum, sit vobis famine, lutier, si, preparat ambulus inter nos, musqui in aeternum.
This continued again and again for minutes, or hours, or days. I was lost to it. The rhythm took me. I almost would compare it to being drunk. My head swam. It made me feel tired. When the chanting eventually did stop, the group cried out one final time in unison,
Hail Deimos.
With everything that had happened thus far, this was the most horrifying event of my or anyone's life. I lay there listening to their chant, knowing I was going to die, knowing Zoe would die. That is a terrible realization for any 12-year-old to be faced with. What happened next was worse. Done with their chanting, the cultists were ready for us. Look, I would like to hope that everyone who is hearing this is an adult. But regardless, you're not stupid, and I'm not going to sit here and spell it out. Needless to say, every one of them took turns using us in every way imaginable. The men, the women, all of them. I tried to fight at first. I think Zoe did too. But after a while, the futility of it all set in and I just waited for it to be done. Eventually, it ended. Afterward, the man in the red mask walked over to the house and procured a black goblet. He walked over and ordered me to drink from it. I probably should have resisted, fought, struggled, something. But I had nothing left in me to fight with. I was nothing. I leaned my head forward and sipped the vile black liquid. It tasted like rotten eggs mixed with fire. The liquid burned me from the inside. The pain was maddening, worse than anything I had ever felt. I was dying. I knew it. I was finally dying. I vaguely remember hearing Zoe scream my name as the darkness took me. I was still screaming when I lost consciousness.